Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a recent wrap up. I'm going to be talking about a bunch of the books that I have read as of late, and I'm going to start with the books that I have DNF'd, and then I'm going to get into the books that I've completed, and then let you know of some books that I'm currently reading and want to read very soon. Jumping right into it, starting with the DNFs, I like starting with the more negative and then moving into the positive. And these are not necessarily books that I think are absolute garbage or anything like that. It's just for whatever reason, they're not fitting my reading tastes particularly. And that's very true of the first one, which would be Mask of Shadows. I'll put up a little thing on the screen so you can see the actual cover image. But this is something that when I very first started, I realized right away was maybe a little too youthful. It just started really quick. And then there was a lot of dialogue, and then there was a lot of kind of info dump type presentation between the dialogue. So the characters would bring something up, and then they would explain it, and then they'd talk some more, and then they would explain it, which I think is just an indication that this is for a younger audience a little bit. If you're interested in this book, though, it follows a thief who has the opportunity to get revenge on behalf of their homeland against the nobles who kind of destroyed their home. The next one I'm pretty sure is going to surprise a lot of people. It's a temporary DNF. I would like to eventually come back to it and try to keep going, but right now it's a hard, I gotta put this down. And that would be The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is a really big surprise because I've heard essentially nothing but great things. It's a World War II story, focuses on these two sisters. I've heard that this book is so emotional and that it's heavily based on some real women during World War II. I just found that one of the sisters is so incredibly stupid that I got to a point where I was like, serious? This chick is so dumb. Like, I just had to immediately put it down because I was almost flabbergasted by how stupid one of the characters is. If you're wondering what the character does that's so idiotic and has me in such a frenzy, she is trying to get to where her sister is, and she meets this guy who was a prisoner. I guess they let the prisoners out, and she bands with him and buddies up with him, and he says kind of weird stuff, but she's just instantly like very intrigued by this prisoner man. And then within like no time at all, she tells the dude that she loves him. And I was like, what's happening? And it's not like she's never been around a guy before. She's kissed boys. She's snuck out of her prep schools and gotten in trouble for flirting with boys and kissing boys or whatever. And so I'm just kind of like, dude, what? How? And it just felt very like this edgy, mysterious man. And she just so badly craves having somebody care about her. I feel like that's the vibe. Except for it's been no time at all. Plus, there's some discrepancies with the details in the book. I ended up looking it up because I'm like, am I crazy? Am I just not paying attention? And I looked it up, and quite a few people have pointed out that there are a lot of discrepancies in the details. So, we'll see. I'll come back to it later, and maybe I'll like it more later. Jumping now into the books that I have completed, and I'm not gonna break the negativity here, unfortunately, and I'm so sad. I thought I was going to love this book. I try not to buy sequels unless I like the first book. Unless I find it at my local used bookstore and it's really cheap and I have store credit or something. But otherwise, I rarely buy sequels, especially full price, which I did for this series. And I didn't like the first one, and I'm just so heartbroken about it, and that would be Jade City. I've just seen so many people love this book. I think the only person, and I'm so sorry to Pierre Ford if I'm misrepresenting her feelings about this book, but I think she was the only person I saw who didn't love it. But everybody else seemed to really like it, and I adore Pierre. I think she's awesome. She's that cousin everybody wishes they had. But I'm like, oh, our tastes don't always align, so I'll probably like it. And it sounded right up my alley. So it's kind of urban fantasy, and it follows these different gangs as they are potentially approaching a gang war. And it gets you the ins and outs of being in this gang. So a lot of the stereotypes in gang type stories, you think it's just pow, 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 action all the time, people always going around killing each other, when in actuality, gangs often have so much influence that they're involved in politics, they're involved in the aid after natural disasters because they have that much power, that much influence, that much money. And the author absolutely fleshes that all out. They show you all of those things. I feel like it's a more realistic portrayal of gangs and gang violence than what we normally see in movies. This reminded me slightly of the movie Romeo Must Die with Jet Li, which follows gang violence, and it's got awesome fighting and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be perfect. I'm gonna love it. And then I'm gonna pick up Jade War. This covers green, that covers red. It'll be perfect for Christmas. I will have a in-depth book review about this because I think that the things I don't care for obviously are very subjective, but they take a little bit more time to really dive into. I will say, I think the easiest way to sum up is the storytelling itself, unfortunately, was not appealing to me in that the author, as I said, clearly has fleshed out so many things in this world, and sometimes they tell me information that I never found relevant. And then I did not like any of the characters, and I like characters who are unlikable. Often, First Law is used as an example, which I agree with. I love following those characters. They're kind of terrible people. Giselle is the worst, but for some reason you kind of start to love following them. I never felt that way about these characters. I felt like for gangsters, two of them were just so incredibly passive, and then the other one was such a hothead, and I was like, I don't like any of you. I was thinking I was going to go into this and get one family, and then I'd also see the other gang, because they do have a rival gang in this story. And you don't. You get the one family. What would have been more to my liking is if we had both families shown, both gangs. We had people in both gangs that we really were invested in. And then anytime that these people go head to head, anytime they have to meet, anytime one of them gets leverage over another through the politics or through having random businesses pledge their allegiance, if you will, to them, every single time that would happen, I would feel conflicted because I'd be like, well, I like that person, but I also like that person in the other gang. So, oh no, I think that would have been great. But I found myself rooting for the rival gang. I will get more into details. I have some tabs of some things that I think better explain some of my feelings. Next up, we have Sword of Kygen by M.L. Wong. This is a standalone Japanese-inspired fantasy story, and it's very different. It's very unique. I do have an in-depth book review already for this one, as well as a chat over with Jessie from the channel Jessie May, so I'll have that chat linked if you want to see an in-depth chat for it. But this one, beginning, felt a little bit on the nose as far as it's showing you the way the world is, and there's a lot of sexism present, there's a lot of propaganda present. They almost have this island, the government has this island kind of brainwashed to believe that they are the Sword of Kygen. They are the people that are meant to be on the front lines defending everyone else. They are the warriors who will protect everyone if something goes wrong. But in order to have a whole society of people dedicated to potentially dying to protect everyone else, they have to really, really in every way build them to be loyal and to have the best warriors possible. And there is a magic system in this that is kind of centered around bloodlines. So the more pure your bloodline, the stronger your warriors are going to be, the better they'll be with magic. You don't want to dilute it in any way. So it creates a lot of arranged marriages. You're seeing characters trapped in this mindset, and that element of the story ends up being really well developed and very nuanced. But when you're first getting introduced to the world, it's kind of like a history lesson a couple different times of this is how we are, this is how things work here. And one of the main two perspectives is a teenage boy named Mamoru, and so you also get kind of his youthfulness tied to it. So it is very, very direct in its presentation at the beginning. And then you also have his mother. Her name is Misaki. You get her point of view. She has kind of a loveless marriage, and she feels very withdrawn from who she really is, what she really believes, because once again, she has to fulfill her role in this society. But things kind of go awry when they're faced with some potential enemies, and then you see the effects of violence. It was so good in that middle. The from around 150 to 200 pages on, was so emotionally driven, such high stakes, so incredibly tragic. The themes are very powerful. We really explore the role of motherhood, the role of tradition. I would still highly recommend this. Just know you're probably gonna have to push through the beginning a little bit, and you might not love the ending, but that middle section really is so strong and so good, and the author takes so many risks, and I personally think it pays off. I can't wait to see what they do next, because I think that they have the potential to be my favorite author. I really hope that she writes more books. Moving now into a couple of books that I would categorize as fun books, because they were just a good old time. You can breeze through them. It's a nice break between the more heavy adult fantasy stuff. The first one would be Warcross by Marie Lu. So I read Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu earlier this year, which is very different from a lot of her other works, but she has written a lot of books. And every time I ask people, hey, where's the best place to start? Pretty much no one says Warcross. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start with Warcross, because if that's the one people think is weaker, I'd like to start there and then kind of work my way up into the other series that people think are phenomenal and much better. And so I was really surprised that this one I thought was quite fun. Some of the tropes were sort of turned upside down. I appreciated how much the author kind of played with my expectations in this book. While some things are very predictable, there were also some twists that I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty fun. I like that you did that there. We followed this girl who has no choice really in her life at this point. She is just trying to get by. And she goes into this game and kind of sort of accidentally hacks her way into a really big event that catches the attention of the creator of the game, who's like this super famous hunksicle millionaire, billionaire guy. And so now she's kind of been offered a job working for them to find out who another hacker is that keeps getting into their system. I think that it was really easy to get through. It was fast-paced. It was fun. The game sounded really cool. And like I said, there were some twists and turns that some of them I called, and then some of them I didn't call at all. And so I think it was a good time. I do still want to read the sequel, but I have seen the rating drop for the second one. A lot of people don't seem to care for it very much, but a lot of people told me that they didn't really like this one either, and I thought it was pretty fun, so we'll see, I guess. The next fun book that I read is Warrior of the Wild. And, okay, if you guys need a really sweet, adorable, cute, Viking-inspired story, which I never thought those words would go together, this book is that. We follow this girl whose clan has kind of cast her out due to her getting screwed over by somebody in her clan, and she has to live in the wild. And she has this task that she has to fulfill if she wants to be able to come back. Otherwise, she's not allowed to come back. If she does come back without having fulfilled this task, the idea is that basically she's not going to be able to live in paradise when she dies. And she's really determined to accomplish this task, except for this task is impossible. The deal is that when people get cast out, they're always given tasks that they can't really fulfill. So while she's out in the wild, she meets two other people who have also been cast out from their village, and they decide they're going to band together and they're going to help each other accomplish their tasks. And it was so cute. I just soaked it all up. I read it basically in a night, and I liked the audiobook too for this one, if you like audiobooks. And it's a breeze. The romance in it is adorable. I thought it was, I just can't stop saying the same words. It was very cute, and it was kind of fluffy. But sometimes you need the fluffy, you know? Sometimes after freaking Sword of Kygen, that was super emotional, you need something really sweet and cutesy. Next up, we have The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. I also have an in-depth book review for this. This is an incredibly fast-paced science fiction story that follows the society of men on another planet. Something wiped out all the women, and also that thing has created men's thoughts to be out in the open. Everybody can hear each other's thoughts. They can hear animals' thoughts all the time. They can't shut it off. They just constant noise. That's what it's called. It's hard to say too much about it, but things are not what they seem, and I really liked this book. It also had some really emotional moments throughout. This book is amazing. There's also an adaptation coming out. I'm not sure you should watch the preview for the trailer if you haven't seen the trailer already. It does look very good, but if you're interested in the book, I almost feel like you should read the book first and then watch the trailer. Otherwise, some of the fun of the book is a little bit spoiled. But either way, it was so good, and I can't wait to read the sequels. Quick rundown of what I'm currently reading and what I'm planning to read. So I had been reading Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which is a reread for me. And I put that book down because I read Rhythm of War and Dawn Shard. And I was like, I might need a tiny bit of a break from Sanderson for a bit here. So I took a little bit of a break, but I am coming back to that. And then for the books that I'm hoping to read soon, and that I'll be giving you some either in-depth book reviews for, or you'll be seeing me talk about in various wrap-ups. Moving forward, we have Best Served Cold, Woven in Moonlight, Priory of the Orange Tree, The Bear and the Nightingale, Underground Railroad, and Sailor Moon. That's it for some books that I've been reading. Let me know what you've been reading recently. What have you been loving? What have you had to put down? I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.